What's good, y'all? How y'all feeling? This is BT back doing another Bright podcast. A little bit different format tonight. Typically, I usually jump into my randomness and absurdness and different flows of chaos going on between music or gaming or just a grab bag. Tonight, because it's kind of been crossing my brain, and I've been sitting here looking at how far we've come with recruitment and prospects as far as as far as high school basketball and college basketball and professional basketball. Thought I'd go a little bit of a different direction in discussing what I like to call the upside and the potential that does or does not exist in these so-called one and done kids who go pro. I'm sitting here right now just to kind of give you an idea. I've been kind of looking over a lot of kids or a lot of guys who have either committed to I'm looking at the ESPN basketball recruiting list of different classes. I've gone back as far as, I would say, 2012 to kind of put a perspective to it. For my sports listeners, I'm going to name a few names that a lot of you will remember, and a lot of you will probably have no idea who half of these people are. Nerlens Noel, Shabazz Muhammad, Kyle Anderson, Anthony Bennett, number 1 draft pick. Still don't see how that was possible. Marcus Smart, Gary Harris, Alex Poitras, Archie Goodwin, blah, blah, blah. The names go on and on. Glenn Robinson Jr. Yeah, just gonna name these guys and keep it going. So these players all were given like high tutelage as being top prospects at their respective high schools and deciding to commit to this college or that college, which in turn, majority of them who go to a college are either going to get the full scholarship or they're going to get the scholarship, play 1 year, and make the jump of all jumps by deciding to go pro. And I really think that the substance or the development of the game of basketball has really been tarnished. And a lot of people are going to get on me about this because I am a very aggressive person when it comes to basketball as a whole. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm expecting basketball to be flawless or fluid. You won't get that. If we go back a ways, I'd have to remember specifically when he came out, but you're not going to come across too many Derrick Roses or Michael Beasleys or Kevin Love or Eric Gordon. I'm looking at, like I said, again, I'm on the ESPN recruiting list, and the first year that they started the recruiting database was back in 2007. So in 07's class, if you really look at the list of guys who are on this list, majority of these guys are playing still or have played, or you know about who they are. So it's potential and it's belief that there are some good players out there. The problem is when the NBA implemented the one and done rule between NBA and, if you want to call it, college basketball or whatever. I think I'm trying to find a way to kill myself and break a nail all at one time. When they put all of this into motion, you had a lot of guys coming out that just were not ready. A perfect example was, it's quite a few. I really just, Anthony Bennett still stands out to me as a guy who, I don't know what he was thinking, who was in his head, who told him that was the right decision, go pro and make a mark in the NBA. But they did it wrong. They truly and honestly did it wrong. It's a lot of pushing and pulling when it comes down to, hey, I'm trying to go. All right, great example. This was from the recent draft that just passed, and I'm going to go into why I'm having this conversation. It's actually twofold. The primary reason I'm getting into this, so one of the first example I think of is Kelly Oubre. You're probably going to be like, who is that? Well, for those who remember, he played at Kansas for 1 year. Really didn't have a great year, but he made the choice to decide to go pro. Forgot what team picked him up, but he ended up getting traded to Washington. Washington basically selected him, and he's pretty much been a no-show. I think if I'm not mistaken, on NBA.com, he's averaging 3.3 points a game. But he was a lottery pick. So I'm confused as to how that all came about. But it happened, and here we are. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go into why I'm having this topic, and you'll see why I'm a little salty in my feelings about the whole ordeal. If you go to the last high school recruiting class, which will be 2015, I'm going to name off some guys. I'm just going to name the top 10, and I'll go into why I'm naming the top 10 in a moment. You have Ben Simmons, Skal Labissiere, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Henry Ellenson, Diamond Stone, Cheikh Diallo, Ivan Robb, Caleb Swanigan, and Malik Newman. Out of all those names, honestly, 3 of them will be going pro this year. We're going to see them once the NBA season ends. They're going to make the decision to go pro. If I wanted to play spades, I could say 3 and a possible, because I wouldn't be surprised if Labissiere leaves Kentucky, even though he had a very atrocious year this year. That's another story, but it's just something I wanted to kind of put out there to put it in perspective. Ben Simmons has been talked about as being a shoo-in for the number 1 pick for quite a while. Sad part about it, the LSU Tigers stink. That might be the most blunt or honest way to say it, but the truth is they suck. They really have just kind of been going through the motions and kind of playing, but there's not even a certainty that they'll make the tournament. If I'm not mistaken, they play Kentucky, and I believe that game is going to factor in whether they have a chance of really making a bid solely based on their conference play. So you have Ben Simmons, you have Brandon Ingram, who's playing for Duke, and whether you want to acknowledge it or not, Grayson Allen has been the star of the show. He had a pretty stable freshman year at Duke, but this year has kind of been, he got the green light to shoot, spot up, create, whatever he wants to do. The first question a lot of people look at is, well, where does that leave Brandon Ingram? Brandon Ingram has been able to create his plays too. You go back and you look at his high school highlights, he's been kind of playing that same way. He's just not the go-to guy at Duke, and that's okay. I will say this now, and I'm saying this only because, number one, I'm a fan, and it's the honest goodness truth. You won't see Kentucky in the Final Four. I can see Duke possibly getting to the Elite Eight, but I won't say Final Four. And it's not that I'm looking at it as I don't like Duke or I'm not a fan of Kentucky. It's just I don't feel like this is their year. It's going to be some unexpected team that's going to come out and just surprise everybody. So I have those 3 guys. And then we have, what's our other guy? Cheikh Diallo that was kind of in limbo as to how they were gonna, whether he would be playing, whether he wouldn't be playing. He had academic issues, things of that sort. So it's the nicest way of me saying it without saying it. You're not gonna see a lot of these guys. I mean, they're gonna be drafted by teams. Hell, I'll even say some of the guys that aren't even in the top 20 will be drafted as a lottery pick. Hopefully, if things go right, Tyler Eulis from Kentucky he'll probably go pro and might get picked up from a team that needs a solid point guard. So that's, as with anything, just stay tuned and remember you've been warned. Now comes why I'm really in my feelings and why I just went outside the box. I went on today and looked at this year's draft class. Oh, I'm sorry, not draft class, but high school class is going to be playing an All-American game in a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken. They play in April. It's usually in March or April that they play that game. From looking at the list of players who are here and supposedly committed, you really don't have anybody that's a true solid standout. The highlights that I looked at for Josh Jackson, don't see him being that phenomenal. Harry Giles will need 2 years, but he's probably going to go early. Jason Tatum is a pretty solid player. And I'm not being lopsided in saying it. I think he's going to be good. It's going to come down to how he fits and where he stands in Duke's rotation and who stays. All of those things factor into whether a guy does well or doesn't do well. The only other guys who I look at in this, just out of the top 10, are Lonzo Ball, who's going to UCLA. He's pretty much going to be given a green light. I already can see that because UCLA didn't have the greatest year this year, but he'll kind of come in and do what he does and make his mark and make it clear what he's trying to do. So that's how I look at him. On highlights I've seen of Miles Bridges, I'm not going to lie, Michigan State is getting a good slasher at small forward. He's going to come in and he's going to play. Even worse, he's going to play and there will be a likelihood of him possibly playing one and done. Prime example, I'm looking at the game now. Harrison Barnes was a one and done. Russell Westbrook was a one and done, and Durant was a one and done. And those guys all turned out pretty good. The main factor, or the main thing you have to think about, is it doesn't work for everyone. Perfect example. If Steph Curry had left Davidson after 1 year, it wouldn't have been the best decision for him. He was able to develop his game. And I think what I like about him the most is, despite what everyone says, he's doing what you're supposed to do in basketball. Win. And not just win, keep winning. And I think that's what I find to be amazing about a lot of these high school players is they get in high school and they're used to being on a team where they win. But then they get to the pros or they get to college and they have to understand, you got to take the bumps. Dwayne Bacon or David, I think his name is Dwayne Bacon from Florida State. Oak Hill, he was the man. Superstar, could score, could play. He had it all. Well, Florida State, still an ACC team. They got to get through about 4 or 5 other teams just to even become recognized. So it's not as gummy bears and raindrops. I mean, gummy bears and gumdrops. I don't know. I was trying to work on something and I had it, but it didn't come out right. But yeah, it's just not. It's not gonna be flawless or fluid for him. The sad part is, he's probably going to leave after 1 year and try to go to the NBA. And I think it's tough because and I'm going into this topic and I'm kind of jumping around with the one and done rule of the college basketball way or the high school recruiting way, because I can tell you now, you're not going to see a lot of the guys who get drafted this year. There's a high chance they're going to be in the D League by the spring. It's just one of those things where if you really don't have a team that you fit in with or that you're meant to be a part of, you're gonna be embracing the D League, and it's just my personal opinion. So I'm gonna kind of end it here. I just wanted to kind of at least get into that topic and just kind of give my 2 cents about, I guess, the state of the league or the state of sports. Wow, Prince is at the Golden State game. That's when you know it's real. Random, I know it's selfies being taken everywhere. But point being is, the main reason I'm doing this podcast is don't be bamboozled by the post. But be bamboozled by the hype of guys who are coming in and, oh, this is gonna be the next phenom. Like, Andrew Wiggins is still trying to find his mark. Jabari Parker is still trying to find his mark. Victor Oladipo is still not known in Orlando. He's got to earn his mark. So it's just coming down to that point occurring. So I'm going to end this here, and I just hope you all enjoyed. I know I'm ending on a weird note. Most of my friends will know why. If you judge or laugh, I'm not even going to deal. But anyways, until next time, this is BT signing out. Take it easy. Peace.